You are listening to Life's A Vacay podcast, a weekly podcast series focusing on living a life without limitations. I'm your host, Cha Jones. Each week, I interview purposeful people about what they do and how they do it. Some have traditional professions, while others have designed unconventional careers. But what matters most is that they all are living a life where business and pleasure never separate. Each day is a vacay. So let's get started.
Hey, Bernadette, how are you doing today?
I am great. How are you?
I am absolutely fabulous. I am glad to be able to talk to you today. So I'm just going to jump into questions and you can give me the tea on who you are and what you do and all that you are doing in Merida. So just for those who have never met you, you are currently living in Merida, Mexico, correct?
Correct.
All right. Now, what made you decide to go to Merida?
So, long story short, right? Because it's always a long story, right? But long story short, honestly, I've been an entrepreneur for over 2 decades. And entrepreneurship was good to me, but entrepreneurship almost took me out.
Okay.
I was working crazy hours. I'm not really taking care of myself. I had gotten sick. I was overweight. I had hypertension. I was just stress, anxiety, all of the things, like anything that you could think of. And I recognized that what I was doing wasn't sustainable. I was not going to be able to continue at the pace that I was going at if I wanted to be around. And so I recognized that I needed to make a change, and becoming an expat was always a dream of mine. I honestly thought that it would be something that I would do when I would retire or semi-retire, because being an entrepreneur, like, I never really see myself as just not ever working ever again, but just maybe working less and doing a little bit more of the things I enjoy. So I thought it would be something that will happen later, not this phase of life. But when I was hit with those health challenges, I recognized that I needed to live somewhere where I can improve the quality of my life. And I went down the YouTube rabbit hole. I was searching, trying to find a place where I felt like I could do those things. And Merida it came up on the list, And I never heard of Merida before I moved here. I never heard of it. I've never been here. I never heard of it. And I'm sure at some point in this conversation, we'll circle back to how it ended up in my Google search. But yeah, I found it on Google.
Okay, so we're Googling places to live. Now, you not only Googled a place to live, but you moved there sight unseen, correct?
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you what I put in the Google search. I put in the Google search best places for Black expats, because I wanted to live somewhere where I would be safe, somewhere where it wasn't going to be a crime to be Black. And I wanted to live somewhere where I would be able to continue to run my business. And so, yeah, and when I Googled best places for Black expats, an article came up and Merida was on the list. It was one of the cities on the list. I had never heard of it. Absolutely never heard of it. And there were lots of other places on the list. But one of the things that made Mexico appealing to me was it was far enough but close enough. Because I have a daughter who lives in the States. My parents still live in the States. My family, my friends, people that I love still live in the States. And so it's like I wanted to get out of the United States, but I didn't want to go too far. I didn't want to be far. If something happened with my daughter and I needed to get back, something happened with my parents, I wanted it to be something where I could jump on a plane tomorrow and get there, And so that is how Mexico ended up on the list. And then Merida just ended up being, in my research, it was the perfect marriage for me.
So let's just talk about this perfect marriage, because I'm Googling places for Black people to go as expats.
Yeah.
And this comes up. What appealed? What was the big appeal other than safety and being close to America?
Yeah. So I realized that I was in such a bad place that the things that I needed, it was a really short list of things that I needed. So I needed safety. I needed to be safe as a single Black woman, and I needed to be safe as a Black person, right? I needed internet. And that sounds crazy, but there are some places that don't have
internet.
that don't have like good Wi-Fi, good broadband internet, fiber optics, all of those things. So I needed good internet. I needed an airport because, of course, I would need to get back to the States for different reasons, either business or personal. And I wanted to be in a place, or I'll say I needed a place where there was community. So even though it showed up on my radar, it showed up on the list, it wasn't my first choice because I had never heard of it, so I never heard of it. But I started researching different cities in Mexico because I was pretty certain that it was going to be Mexico or somewhere in Central America. Okay. Again, I needed to be somewhere where I wasn't too far, but far enough. And so I started researching. I honestly thought it was going to be Costa Rica. I had been researching Costa Rica for 2 years. And when I started, down the YouTube rabbit hole and I started watching videos and I saw videos comparing different cities and the different things. And man, it just checked the boxes. And again, I had a short list. Remember, I just needed safety. I needed Wi-Fi, community, and an airport.
Right. I mean, that's a good list. It is short, but it's a good list. Yeah. Now, you mentioned your family and friends. So how did they react when you said, look, I threw a dart and on the good YouTube, I'm gonna go off them good YouTubers and we're gonna go down here to this place in Mexico, of all places.
So yeah. One thing is, I'll say that the people that I told, I had a very short list of people who actually knew that I was moving. And when I say short, I want to say it was 5 people. I can't remember how many people I actually told when I, was like packing my stuff and saying that I'm leaving. But it was a really short list of people because I recognized that this sounds crazy, right? This sounds crazy. This girl is getting ready to pack up her whole life and move to a place that she's never been. And so I recognized that it was going to be crazy to a lot of people. So there were people that I didn't tell. And full disclosure, I moved in May and I announced that I was in Mexico in December.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you've been here almost 6 months.
Yeah.
Almost 7.
Yeah,
You made the announcement. Okay.
And I made the announcement. I did a YouTube video. I posted it on my channel. I posted it on Facebook. It went crazy. People, the video. I mean, I'm not a viral sensation, so to say that my video got like 1,000 views, that's huge, right? So yeah, people were. I was getting text messages from my family members like, "Are you serious?" Because I had a life that was so virtual that I could be in a different place and nobody would know it. And that was the test for me, because not letting people know as soon as I moved here was proof of concept to let people know that I can continue to run my business. I can continue to stay connected to my family and friends, and you all would be none the wiser because they didn't know I was here for 5-6 months before they even knew that I was in a whole different place. I was running my business, talking to my friends, doing all the things that I normally did, except for being, so I would occasionally get the invitations to things in Atlanta, and I'd be like, oh, I'm going to be out of town that week. True, I didn't lie. I was out of town, and so, yeah, I just didn't tell a lot of people because this was a lot for me. It was a lot to pack up my stuff and move to a place that I never been before and to figure this out. And it was not easy. And so the last thing that I needed were naysayers or people projecting their negative feelings or their fears on me So what I needed to do was get here, figure it out, and then let them know, like, hey, I did this, y'all. I did it. It happened. It's already happened. I'm good. Right.
Well, that's a great way to keep everybody at bay, because by the time they got something to say, I live this. I'm good.
Yeah. And it was, it was so funny, because even after I announced it, right, there were people that were still saying dumb stuff like, "Don't drink the water." Like, for real, that's what you, and that is why I'm telling you in December and not when I moved in May. So.
Well, that's a good way to keep it under wraps. But once you got to Mexico, you're living kind of pseudo secret life for the people who know you. But what were some of the biggest culture shocks since you were moving to Mexico? And what was the hardest thing for you to have to deal with?
Oh my gosh, like hardest. It's a whole list of things, right? So, there are people who look at my life now and they think it's so perfect, and you get to go to the beach and you live in a tropical place, and all of those things are true and very amazing. But there are still challenges with moving to a whole nother country, right? And so the first challenge, of course, is the language. I am not fluent in Spanish, right? So there was the challenge of, I guess it was, I had a come to Jesus moment with myself to realize how much Spanish I didn't know, right? And so I took Spanish in high school, which was a few days ago, right? So, and so I took 3 years of Spanish in high school. I grew up in South Florida. I had Puerto Rican friends. We habla español and all that stuff, right? Listen, first of all, I graduated from high school a long time ago. And I had not lived in South Florida for 20 something years. And so the culture that I was accustomed to, where I was hearing Spanish on a regular basis and even kind of speaking Spanish on a regular basis, was not a part of my last 2 decades of living, right? So getting here and realizing that little bit of Spanish you learned in high school, yeah, boo, that ain't gonna get it. It's not gonna get it. So that was a big shock. Not speaking Spanish. But one thing that I can say about the Yucatecan people is that they are so kind. And being here and experiencing their kindness when I don't speak their language, when I'm butchering their language, when I'm trying on Google Translate and all of this, and they try to, has given me an appreciation greater than anything. Like, I recognize how it's not reciprocated when they come to the United States, And so that was one of the biggest things is dealing with the language barrier, right? And then just understanding how to do certain things. Like, I had to figure a lot of stuff out on my own. I moved here with 3 suitcases. I put my stuff in storage before I left Atlanta because I didn't know where I was going to be and what my place was going to look like, how much of my stuff was going to fit or whatever. Like, I knew that I was going to bring my things because I had too many things that either had sentimental value or things I had just purchased, and things that I really liked and wanted to keep. So I put my things in storage and moved here with my 3 suitcases, which included some clothes and some towels and, stuff like that, right? Toiletries. And so I was able to I stayed in a hotel for a month because I'm not an Airbnb person. God bless you who are, and what you do, right? And so, but I like hotels. I don't like Airbnb. So I stayed in a hotel for a month, and thankfully I'm titanium elite now, thanks to that. But I stayed in a hotel for a month before finding my place, moving into my place. And even after I got my place, I didn't have any furniture. So I bought an air mattress. I went to Sam's and I bought this little card table and a folding chair. And I was in my place for a month before my furniture could get shipped here. So again, even a handful of people who knew that I was in Mexico, they would say stuff like, "You drinking a margarita?" And I'm like, I am sitting at a card table and running my business from a card table, and I slept on an air mattress last night, so.
All right.
It's not quite the luxury thing that you're thinking, but I was happy. I was fine with that, because I was still in a better place, even sleeping on an air mattress, and I found a really good one. So I didn't wake up with backaches, but even sleeping on an air mattress and working from a card table, that card table was my desk, my dining room table. It was everything, right?
It was functional.
So it was a challenge to do those things, but I did it.
Well, I'm glad that you were able to make it through all that. That just, it makes you stronger. And, you had a plan, you worked your plan, and you're on the other side of that. So what helped you get settled? Once you had all your things that you got from the US, what made you feel like, okay, I'm home. This is home.
Yeah. I think having my things definitely made it feel more like home, putting some things up on the wall and, sleeping in my bed, the bed that I had, and, working on my desk. My desk is one of the things that I had a lot of sentimental value. I've had this desk now for, I want to say about 15 years, but it's a really, really nice mahogany wood desk, and so just having those comforts, the things that I was kind of accustomed to, definitely made it better. It made it a lot easier for me to work, because working from that card table and that little folding chair was not getting it, It was so having my things made a difference. But also...
Hey everybody, it's Cha Jones, and I am super excited because I have a new book. Yes, a new book. It's called Reclaiming Myself. It's a 12-week journal, a self-guided self-care journal specifically for moms who are ready to prioritize themselves, own their health, happiness, and personal growth. Each week focuses on different areas of self-care with journaling prompts, self-reflection exercises, and action items tailored to help you rediscover your passions, cultivate self-love, reduce stress, and carve out time specifically for you. Reclaim the woman that you are and be the best version of yourself with the Reclaiming Myself 12-week journal. It's available on Amazon or wherever you get books. Invest in yourself, mama. You deserve it.
The community here is also what helped. I made friends quickly. I was insistent on meeting new people, making new friends, establishing community, and doing that very quickly also helped with the transition, because then it was an opportunity to do things with people who looked like me, who understood the challenges that I was going through, and people who could probably steer me in the right direction and saying, oh yeah, I did this, or this is the dentist that I use, or this is the gynecologist that I use, or something like that. So those kind of things help as well.
So, okay, let's talk a little bit more about the community. And there are people who are expats who go to foreign countries and they only stay with people who look like them. Then there are people who immerse themselves into the culture, in the community of the actual country. So where do you find yourself?
I'm probably more of the expats that hang with expats. But I found myself doing a little bit more of immersing myself in the culture. So I think that hanging with expats initially is what eased me into this, right? Mm-hmm. So because keep in mind, I came to a country sight unseen, absolutely, and so I needed some of those comforts. And so I know that there are people who have opinions about going to another country just to hang out with Americans. What's the whole point? But listen, to experience Mexican things with other Americans is just as amazing as experiencing those Mexican things with Mexicans, because it's still something that is quite amazing. And I've done both, So yeah, I think that the familiarity of hanging with people that look like me helped with the transition.
Okay. Now let's shift gears just a little and talk about your business. Now you have a digital business where you can pretty much live anywhere in the world. Talk about what it is that you actually do, and how do you think being able to like sustain yourself by running your business and not having to like stop and do something different or find a job or all those type of things has made a difference in you settling in Mexico?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So entrepreneurship is absolutely the vehicle that allowed me to be able to do this. If I had a job, if I worked for another company or something like that, I may not have the freedom that I have now. So I own an accounting firm, and I started my firm in 2001. When I started my firm, it was home based. I was just kind of trying to figure it out. And eventually it grew to a point where I was, I had employees, I had physical offices. There was a time when I was in Atlanta and I had 2 office locations, one in Atlanta, one in Snellville. We moved to Loganville. I mean, I've had like the physical offices and all of that, employees, all of those things. And then about 13 years ago, I saw a decline in the number of clients who were physically coming into the office to get their taxes done or to have their books done. More people were using our secure portal and sending stuff electronically. And it was, in Atlanta, to be able to save time and not have to drive to your accountant's office is a dream come true. And so seeing that shift and the business, I kept saying to myself, why am I paying this overhead? That office overhead was no joke, right? So I'm like, if I could get rid of this overhead and continue to operate my business, this is amazing. And so that's what I did. I got rid of my offices. I moved back home, as far as my office back home, back to where I started. And I lost a handful of clients because there were some clients that just needed that physical touch. They needed to be face-to-face with their accountant. They weren't comfortable with uploading documents and things like that. But what I realized, and I'm an accountant, so we're going to look at the numbers, the money that I was losing on a handful of clients who weren't comfortable was nothing in comparison to the money I was spending to maintain that physical location. So my business was virtual 13 years ago. And so in those 13 years, I continued to grow my business. People were amazed that in that time, I was getting clients that I had never met face to face. These were people who just were referred to me. They trusted me. And that is how I grew my business. So when the pandemic hit and people were forced to work virtually, to do stuff on Zoom, to upload documents, we were sitting there like, hey, y'all, we've been doing this. This is how we've been operating for the last 8 years.
All right.
And so it was nothing new to us. It solidified the processes that we already had in place. So we didn't miss a beat during the pandemic. And so my business grew crazy. That was the good. It was the good and the bad part because I was making mad money, but I was killing myself. Right. And so the business, being able to work virtually, allowed me to do a lot of things. Even before leaving the country, I had the flexibility to be able to do something. Like when my daughter bought her house, I remember that my mom and I, because my mom works in my business with me, my mom and I, we just picked up and drove to Maryland to help. We were there with her closing, help her move in, get herself settled. And the people at the closing were like, oh, you all came up for the closing. How long are you going to be here? And we're like, well, I don't know. We're just going to be here till we get done, And just being able to do those kind of things. And so entrepreneurship gave me the flexibility to be able to do that. And so when I made that decision to say, hey, I got to do something different, moving to another country, I knew that it was going to be seamless. And like I said, I had been working with my clients. I was still doing all the stuff. I do coaching calls with small business owners. I was still doing their books, their taxes. Most of them didn't even know. Eventually, I started telling clients like, hey, you know what? I've been in Mexico for the last 4 months. And they were like, what? They never noticed the difference. And so, yeah, that is one of the true benefits and blessings of entrepreneurship, because it allowed me to be able to do those things and still be able to show up in the ways that I've shown up.
Okay. So for those people who are sitting like you, going through YouTube, listening to this podcast, and they want to know, like, all right, I have a business, I can be virtual, I can move to their country. What are some things that you had to think about legally to run your business, or were there anything that needed to change for you to actually be operating in Mexico but still running your business in the U.S.?
Yeah, so my business is still U.S. based. We have a physical address in Atlanta. Everything is still run from the state of Georgia. I still pay taxes in the United States. I still pay taxes in the state of Georgia. So nothing from that aspect has changed. The only thing that has changed is my physical location. So I don't work with clients here in Mexico. All of my clients are U.S.-based clients. So that's why I'm usually leery of using the word that I have like an international business, because I don't want no problems with them people. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so I don't do any business. I don't make any money in Mexico. All my money is made in the United States. And so one of the things that I would say is just to make sure that your paperwork is in order, you still filing your taxes and, doing all those kinds of things. And so that is the case for me, so I still pay taxes in the United States. My physical domicile is just in another country.
Right. Okay. So let's get to the life of Vacay, because that's the good part.
That's the good part.
Because the icing on the cake. How are you able to create a life of Vacay and a lifestyle where you can pretty much have a soft life in Mexico? And what does that look like for you?
Yeah, so that was all the goal, right? So remember I told you I was sick, I was overweight, I had hypertension, which none of those things exist now. I've lost the weight, I've gotten off the hypertension pills, all of that, right? And so for me, it was about being able to move to a place where I could slow down a little bit, because slowing down for me meant that if I stayed in the United States, slowing down for me meant a significant downsize in lifestyle, which I don't know. I just kind of got used to some stuff, right? So I wasn't really ready to do that. But being able to live here, where I will not say that Mexico is cheap, because it's not, and Merida is definitely not cheap, but it is less expensive for me to live here, and I'm able to have the things that I had in Atlanta for less, which allowed me to work less, which allowed me to be able to have what you call a life of vacay, right? And so for me, I do live a soft life. I am very focused on my health. Those are things that are priorities for me. I made a major shift in my business. One of the things that moving to Mexico allowed me to do was discontinue a service that was stressing me out. So I used to do taxes. I don't anymore. I don't do taxes. And I walked away from a lot of money. Sometimes I look at it and be like, you really did that, right? Like, I'm gonna just be honest. It was like almost $100,000 in income that I walked away from. And so walking away from that income was significant, right? It was significant.
Hey there, listeners. Are you ready to escape the hustle and bustle and design your own slice of paradise? If so, join us this October for the Design Your Soft Life retreat in the breathtaking beauty of Tulum, Mexico. Picture this: 5 nights and 6 days of pure relaxation, empowerment, and transformation. It's a luxurious getaway designed specifically for ambitious women like yourself who are craving more ease, freedom, and fulfillment in their lives. Get ready for the soft life. Embrace yourself in daily workshops, meditation sessions, and one-on-one coachings, all set against the backdrop of Tulum's stunning beaches and lush jungles. This isn't just a vacation. It's a journey of self-discovery and empowerment back to your authentic self. So, pack your bags and get ready to design the life you deserve. Spaces are limited, so reserve your spot on the waiting list now at bravosista.com. That is BRAVOSISTAH.com, and click on events and get on that waiting list. We'll hope to see you there.
But what it did was allow me to prioritize some things, to shift some things, to do things a little bit differently. And again, focus on that life. So for me, what that looks like personally, eating better, I'm exercising regularly. I have a health plan, a wellness plan. And so a part of my wellness plan is there are certain things that I do on a regular basis. And there are things like going to the beach is a part of my wellness plan because it's my happy place and it is a place that brings me peace and it brings me joy. And so those are things that I have to do on a regular basis. Getting a massage is something that brings me peace and joy and it helps with my health. And so getting massages, getting facials, going to therapy, all of these things are things that are a part of my wellness plan. And they are also a part of, again, what you call a life of vacay, because some people are like, I get a facial every month. I get a massage at usually about 2 times a month, unless I'm traveling, and even traveling, like I've been traveling more and just being able to do that because, yeah, being here has given me the ability to do that. I'm so grateful. I really am. Just thinking about it, I'm getting a little emotional. It's like, for real, like this is awesome. Yeah. Yeah.
So there are people who are listening and say, okay, well, that's great. You are able to have a wellness plan. Your life is a lot softer. You're, taking care of yourself. But I got this 9 to 5 and I don't necessarily have a way to make money remotely that I can see at this particular moment. But I need that life too. What would be your advice to them?
Yeah, I get it. I hear it all the time. A lot of times I think people don't realize the gifts that's within them, right? So it may be time to do a skill assessment. Like, what are some skills that you have in your 9 to 5 job that could translate into a business? What are some skills that you have that could translate into remote work? Now, this isn't my specialty, because again, I'm telling you, like, I've had a business and my business has been remote for the last 13 years. But if you're in a 9 to 5 situation, you may want to either look to see if there are jobs that you could do remotely, or do you have skills in your current job that could translate to something else in another job? Because you do have to have a remote setup. One of the things that I've seen is people who come here and aren't able to stay is because they don't have a solid source of income. So you want to have that solid source of income before you get here, because if you don't, it's going to be tough.
Okay. Now, what is the thing that you have found the most joy being able to do in your life of vacay in Mexico?
Jumping in my car and being at the beach in like 20 minutes. Like, for real. Like that. I grew up in South Florida. People say, well, you grew up near the beach. One, I ain't had no car because I was a kid. And then even when I was an adult, I was living my life was so hectic and busy. I didn't really have a full appreciation for that. And so to be in a situation where I can go to the beach any day that I want, anytime that I want, and, and spend time at the beach, that is my most favorite thing. That is the thing that I enjoy the absolute most. And when I say I love the beach, I don't have to get in the water. All I want to do, I don't even need to be in the sun. All I want to do is, because I'm gonna be in the shade. I'm gonna just tell you, I'm in the shade. I'm gonna have my sun hat on because all of those things. But just being close to the water, to smell the salt, just to the fresh air, that is so much therapy for me. And the fact that it's literally at my fingertips. Now, I'm not walking distance. I do have to get in the car and drive, but to one, have a car, and 2, to be able to do that, absolutely my favorite thing.
Right. I want to ask so many more questions, but I'm running out of time. So tell the listeners, like, if you could, like, give, I guess, a couple things, not necessarily advice, but just things that you did that made this transition in your life better beyond just being able to move and being able to set up a wellness plan? What are some other things that you did that kind of just set you up for the softest life that you could possibly have right now?
Number one, not telling people. I'm telling you, like, I don't regret that at all. Like, even when I told you, like, I was here and got here in May and didn't make the announcement. Most of the people in my life didn't know until December. That was the best decision ever, because everybody has an opinion. And a lot of times people's opinions, God bless them, sometimes they're well-intended, but many times people's opinions is based on their limited exposure. People who, like somebody who's never left the country, please don't say nothing to me about leaving the country. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't even have a passport, sir, so I'm going to need you to sit down, or somebody who lives in a crime-filled city is telling me to be safe when I'm in the safest city in Mexico, like have several seats, so yeah. So I think that telling just the people who need to know, right, and moving in silence is powerful. It is so powerful because this is hard. And there are things, and I'm sure you can attest to it in your own experience. There's some things when you get over here, you're just going to be like, what? Like, I got to do what? Like, I've gone through some crazy stuff and done some crazy stuff. And so when too many people know what you're doing, they're going to be like, see, that's why I told you, you shouldn't have did that. And all this, like some of the crazy stuff that I had to experience when I first got here, I didn't need nobody in my ear telling me that kind of stuff. So the people that knew were people who were in my corner, people who had my back, and they were people who saying it's going to be okay. You're going to get through this. It's going to be all right, and so making sure that you move in silence and be selective about the people who you allow, really close to you, especially when you're making that transition. And I would just say, be fearless, because doing what is comfortable, doing what you have always done is going to continue to give you what you have. And if you want to change, you're going to have to do something sometimes extremely radical to get that change.
Well, thank you so much, Bernadette. Tell people how they can either reach you via your business and or social media.
Absolutely. So if you on social media, my tag is Trust Bernadette on all social media platforms. So you can connect with me on social media there. I have a YouTube channel that's also at Trust Bernadette. And I also, on that YouTube channel, I have a playlist where I share like my expat journey. So you can learn more. Since we didn't get to talk about all the things, right? You can check out that expat playlist where I talk about just my experience. And I'm not purporting to be an expert or anything like that, just sharing my experience in moving to another country. As far as my business is the BTB Advisory Firm. So you can find us online at the btbadvisoryfirm.com.
Well, thank you. I'm sure you helped somebody who is sitting somewhere and they're thinking about their next move and how they can move, and really being fearless, because it doesn't always turn out very good when someone goes somewhere sight unseen, and it could have been totally different. And so, yeah, I think just being able to be fearless, walking your purpose, and trust that everything is going to be all right. And know that, if it did go bad, you could have always gone home. But just knowing that sometimes if you don't have a way out, you just have to make a way. And if there's somebody who is struggling with, can I do it? You are a testament that it can be done. So Absolutely. Thank you for sharing your story with us and speaking with us today.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I enjoyed the conversation.
Yes, so I am Chad Jones. And if you like the show, please subscribe, share, and donate to help keep this going. Next time, we will be talking to another expat. So tune in to see who that is. And remember always to find time to live and express your freedom. I'm out.
You have been listening to Life's a Vacay podcast. Thank you for tuning in today. Every day you have a choice, so choose yourself and never allow your circumstances to dictate the life you live. Whatever you don't like, you can change. Remember, nothing happens overnight, but know that when you set goals and take inspired action, whatever you desire can come in perfect timing. Never give up on creating the life you deserve. Don't anticipate your next vacation when you could be living a whole life on vacation. Until next time, I'm your host, Cha Jones. Please remember to like and share this podcast so that others can be inspired. Peace.